Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to do a review on the Hasina 2 palette by Blush Tribe. If you didn't see my first impression try on with this palette, I did a look with it and I talked about how I felt about it the first time trying it. Definitely check that up above there. But I've been trying it for a little while now, and so now I want to come back and give you my full thoughts on this palette. So if you want any of the, details about this, how much it costs, about the shipping and stuff like that, that I talked about a little bit in my first impression, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But if you want to hear those details, then definitely check that out, and I will, I'll link it down below so you can, of course, go and look yourself. I also did another look, just a very quick video of a tutorial on an eye look using some of the greens in this palette over here. Actually, maybe all of them. I think I used all of them. I can link that one up for you above as well. If you want to see other looks with this palette, I certainly can. I'm, of course, wearing this palette on my eyes today. I'm wearing all of the purples, so all of these shades right here. If you want to see more with this palette, definitely let me know. But I feel like I have, 2 videos already on this palette, and I now have this one, so I probably will move on from this, but you'll definitely see it from time to time on my channel because I am enjoying it. So that's sort of the quick review for you, is that I really, really enjoy this palette. So let's go through and talk about some of the pros and cons about this palette. So let's talk about the positive things about this palette, which the biggest thing is the color story. I mean, it's just absolutely a gorgeous palette. If you like purples, greens, blues, if you like colorful palettes, then this is it. I mean, this is such a beautiful palette. And when I saw it, it immediately caught my attention, and I knew that I was going to buy it. And I've been really, really thrilled with the quality. This is the first palette that I've ever tried from Blush Tribe, and I would definitely try more from them. I've been very, very impressed with it. I would say the only shade that has caused me a little bit of, I just want to say it's a challenging shade. It's still a good shade. It's not bad by any means, is the shade Mohan. This dark purple, and purples, like I mentioned in my first impression, they are hard to formulate, and so that's not really a surprise. And you'll see what I experienced in my first impression. It just got a little bit patchy on me and I had to keep building it up, but I didn't have too much trouble blending it. It was fine. I'm wearing it on my eyes today, and it's just that it's not a user-friendly, like foolproof, easy shadow if you are not used to working with shades like that, and you just have to be aware of it. But it's really not too much of a problem. But it is a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. I really love that shade, so it's not gonna stop me from using it. I love it. I think all of these shades work really nicely together. I think that all these greens especially are so nice. There's a good variety of green mattes. I love that there are, these 2 shades of green here, and then there's even like a darker olive green type of shade. I think that that's really nice. And these 2 shimmers are quite nice as well. I definitely had a little more luck with the shade Jade. I think that one's really a beautiful shadow. Shea is pretty too, but I wasn't as excited about it, I guess, as this one because it's just so dark. The shade Re is absolutely stunning. I really, really love that shade. And you can kind of pair it with some of the purples, you can pair it with the greens, the blues, you can kind of use it in any way that you want, and it will go nicely with all of those colors. And I really like the shade Ash, this black. I found that this works really well. I even used a tiny bit of that today just to sort of deepen up the outer corners a little bit. It's very pigmented, but it's really easy to blend. So I find that it's a good addition to this palette if you want to deepen things up a little bit. I found that everything lasts really well in my eyes. I always use some type of eyeshadow primer. I haven't tried it without because I have to. Not only do I have slightly hooded eyes, but I have oily eyelids, and so I would have to use some type of primer, so I can't speak to how they would last or how they would perform without one, but that's just not something I would be able to do. I also find that these shades all look pretty true to color on the eyes as they do in here. Sometimes you put a shade on your eyes and it looks different than the way it looks in the pan, and I didn't find that to be the case with this. I found that these all looked the way that they were supposed to when I put them on the eyes, and so I really liked that about these. So let's talk a little bit about the things that I didn't absolutely love about this palette, and some of them are not that important. They're just things that I feel like you should know. So If you're somebody who doesn't like to either use your fingers or use a wet brush with shimmers, I don't think you're gonna love this, because to me, at least in my experience, they really did need a wet brush. They would look nice with your finger, but the best application would be if I used a wet brush. And I also like to use a glitter base, but that is also just because of my hooded eyes. It's not necessarily something that you have to do. I mostly put that on just so that I, first of all, don't get fallout, but that I also don't get it like transferred up above here. But I also, by the way, have not experienced that much fallout with that. That's another thing that I should have added earlier about things that I like about this palette. I really haven't experienced too much fallout at all. And so that's been really, really nice. Even with packing these on, I really haven't gotten much fallout from these. And I have done my eyes first just in case, but I haven't had too much trouble. So it's not like these are not gonna show up at all if you don't use a wet brush, but they're just gonna be very subtle shimmers, and I want my shimmers to have a nice pop, to be really metallic. Most of the time, I want them to be that way, and these just need to be wet if they're gonna be that way. And that's okay, that doesn't bother me. I just always wet shimmers because it is pretty rare to find shimmers that are going to be intense enough without wetting them. It's very, very rare, even for, you know, high-end, you know, expensive palettes. I find that to be the case. There are certainly ones that can be used without wetting them, but it's rare. So that does not bother me at all. If that's something that does bother you, it's just something that you should know. While I do feel like this is an all-in-one type of palette, this is definitely a palette that I can create a full look. I mentioned in my first impression, though, that the only things that it's maybe missing are highlight shades. So, you know, whether you use something on your brow bone, some people do, some people don't. I don't necessarily need one, but there's not really something for the inner corner if you were at least around my skin tone. I mean, you know, but even if you're a darker skin tone, I don't really think that any of these are bright enough to be put on the inner corner. There are a few in here that would be okay, but I still feel like they would need something on top of them to make them pop. So like on the inner corner, I brought the shade Destiny. I kind of have it right here on this third of my eye, and I brought it on the inner corner, but then I still took my highlight and popped it on top because it wasn't quite enough of a brightness that I wanted. And I did the same thing in, I think, my first impression video. I felt like I needed to put something on top of Monique because it wasn't quite bright enough. It looked pretty, but if you want a bright inner corner highlight, then it's just not going to be enough. I mean, same thing if you put like Faye on the inner corner or Jade. They're beautiful and they would look nice, but I still think you probably, if you're like me, you would probably want to put something on top to just make it a little bit brighter. So those are the only things that this palette is really missing. But the other thing that I want to point out is that, yes, this can be an all-in-one palette for you, besides that maybe, but you're going to come out with a pretty bold look in the majority of the cases. So even today, I didn't really plan on this being quite as bold as it is. And that's the thing with this palette. You're going to really come out with pretty bold looks, and that's okay. And that doesn't bother me. I also feel like, you know, I can pull in other shades from other palettes, other singles, whatever, and then use this palette. You don't necessarily have to pull this out and only use this, right? But if you wanted to do something that was a little bit of a softer look, then you would really have to pair this with something else. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to get a soft look. I feel like the only way you could do that is if you went in with, say, the shade Iris and one of like the shimmers and didn't like wet it too much, or even if you did, just, you know, going in with Iris. That's really the only like soft shade in here. Otherwise, I think that you're gonna get pretty dark and bold pretty quickly. So, you know, if you're looking for natural looks, this is just not going to be for you. I mean, even if you like color, but you want a natural, colorful look, this is not really going to be it unless you pair it with something else. Also, if you are somebody who is wanting to experiment with color and you're a beginner with color, not really the palette for you, just because these are very bold. I do find that they're easy to work with. So if you're a beginner in that way, I do think these are easy to work with, but I still think you're gonna come out with a very bold, colorful look unless you're pairing it with something else, and so that may not be what you're looking for. For me, it's a nice addition to my collection because while I can create a look pretty much with just this, like I did today, I can also, you know, pull in some other shadows from all of my other palettes and create something a little softer or just a little more unique from whatever else I want to use that's not in here. So, you know, you have different options that you can do if you were to pair this with something else. The only other critique that I have is the purple shimmers over here. They're all beautiful, and you can see they're different. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar enough that I wish at least one of them was a little bit different. Like, I feel like, I mean, if you look at it, I almost wish Monique was just a little bit lighter. I wish that it was sort of like an icy purple, like a whitish purple, you know, shifty color, something like that. That could be like an inner corner highlight. I just feel like when you put these on the eyes, they end up being very, very similar, as you can see. I mean, Destiny has a little more of like a pinky purple undertone to it, you know, and then I don't know how you pronounce this one, grain, I don't know. You know, this one is definitely much more like true purple, like violet purple. And, you know, this one is definitely the lightest of them, and it's sort of like in between the two as far as like purple and pink. But I just feel like they end up being really, really similar. I used Destiny and Grain on my eyes. So Grain is right here and Destiny's right there. And yes, they're different, but I just wish there was a little bit more of a difference, at least with one of them. Because I just feel like there's not as much of a variety when it comes to those shades. As, you know, with your greens and your blues, those two, you know, obviously there's only two of each of them, but they're very different. You know, these two greens, very different. And these two blues are very different. So I just wish there was a little bit more of a variety when it came to those purple shimmers, but they are beautiful. I do enjoy them. So, you know, I can use other shades if I really wanted to. All in all though, I think this is a fabulous palette. It's a good price for what you're getting. You know, if you want to play with more colors, you want to have more colorful shades in your collection, this is a great option. And it's nice to support an indie brand. You know, I think that indie brands are coming out with really cool things, more so than, you know, some of the bigger brands that are more mainstream. And so if you're looking for something a little bit different than what you're seeing on, you know, the more mainstream market, you know, indie brands are worth looking into. And I'm really glad that I got this palette. I'm excited to continue to play with it. And, you know, also, like I said, experiment using this along with other things, because then I think the options will become even more endless with this one. All right, everyone, so that is it for my review of the Hasina 2 palette by Blush Tribe. I hope that you enjoyed hearing my thoughts about this palette. Are you thinking about getting this palette, or are there other palettes from Blush Tribe that you're interested in? I'm definitely curious about this brand even more now that I've tried this, and I'm sure that I will look into trying some other things from them in the future. If you like this video, please make sure and give it a big thumbs up. That really does help out my channel so much. I post videos every single Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Time. If you are not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to stick around, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye.